We've taken the train uptown, just like the Duke Ellington song, in order to explore one of the most beautiful areas in the entire island of Manhattan that a lot of people actually don't know about. Specifically, it's not really mentioned in the tourist books. Thus, we're heading up to 145th Street, up to Hamilton Heights. I'm Ariel, you're watching Urbanist, and let's explore uptown Manhattan. So we are going uptown to 145th Street on the A train line. The B and C train also stop here, and the D as well. And this is uptown Manhattan, which a lot of people don't go to. And you're about to be astonished by the beautiful architecture that's all around. So this is St. Nicholas Avenue. And this way is Harlem. Harlem is a little bit lower elevation than where we're traveling right now.
Stop it!
Because we're going to one of the highest spots in the entire island, up to the neighborhood of Hamilton Heights. So keep that in mind as we go up this street. Indeed, B. Griffin, it is a New York moment. Hello, Susie. Hello, Laureen. Hello, Michelle. Haven't seen you in a while. I know you're a fellow uptowner. Welcome. Hello, Sam. Hello, Elazar. Hello, Crystal. Hope your trip was good. It was good. I came back fairly easily. It was a very comfy train ride. And glad to be back in New York. It's fun. Hello, Ralph. Hello, Panagiotis. Welcome. Nice to see you here. Hello, Love Pugs. Edward, Dutch guy reporting in. Thank you so much for tuning in, Edward. Hello, Sally. I'm doing well today. So we're already starting to see the historical architecture as we're going up the hill of Hamilton Heights. Now, it's not that big of a hill, especially when you compare it to what we just explored in Boston with Beacon Hill. But for Manhattan, it's at least something, a little bit higher elevation. Hello, Marguerite. Hello, Sally. Hello, Brian. So the main star of today's show is Convent Avenue. And we'll wait for the garbage can to pass by. Ralph, you love the duck ride. Amazing. Hello, Nina. Hello, Will. Hello, Blakely. Now prepare yourself for one of the most beautiful streets, in my opinion, of Manhattan, Convent Avenue, filled with gorgeous architecture that you might recognize from a few films. Here's the Convent Avenue Baptist Church. And welcome everyone to Uptown Manhattan. Let me know, have you been uptown? For the people who watch, who are usually tourists here in New York City, let me know if you've been to Uptown Manhattan. B. Griffin, I appreciate the email. Sometimes I don't have time to respond to every email, but I do appreciate your suggestion. I will take into account. wide sidewalks. Here there are wide sidewalks. Yes, it's a little bit more spacious in this area of Manhattan. It doesn't feel as crowded and as intense as further down below. And so many masks. Yeah, people are wearing masks. Yeah. And cool thing about the architecture here is that we are about to see Hogwarts in New York City. If you're a fan of Harry Potter, you know what I'm talking about. That beautiful kind of Gothic English style architecture. There's some here, right in the middle of New York City. And I used to attend college over here, so this would be my usual route up to school on a daily basis, where I studied electrical engineering and graduated with a bachelor's degree. So this is bringing back old memories. We're also going to visit the home of a man who lost his son after he fought in a duel in order to defend his own father's name. That's the namesake of this neighborhood, Hamilton Heights. If you know who I'm talking about, let me know in the comments. Hello, Carolyn. Hello, Happy. Happy Trick says it's an architectural bonanza. Brian, you've been to Midtown. Cool. Next time, go a little bit further up. I'll show you why as we're walking through. I've been to the Uptown Trinity Church Cemetery area. Yeah, Carolyn, I'm actually going to visit that soon, so maybe stay tuned. That'll probably happen next week. Hamilton Heights is named after, the man on the $10 bill, Alexander Hamilton himself. The Scotsman, son of a Scotsman who came over here after being disrupted by a hurricane that ruined his town and his family's fortune, came and made his way to the US. Now this house is very popular with certain fans of Wes Anderson films. I'm a huge fan of Wes Anderson. He's one of my favorite directors of all time. And let me know, what famous Wes Anderson film, he hasn't made that many films, so I don't think it'll be too hard to guess. What Wes Anderson film was this featured in? This house. I'll give you a hint. It won Best Screenplay at the Oscars. It was nominated for Best Picture. Stars Gene Hackman as the patriarch of a very dysfunctional family. One of the sons is Ben Stiller, where he has two twin boys that are dressed exactly the same way he is in the red jumpsuit. Rosemary's Baby, no. Now, if Wes Anderson were to direct Rosemary's Baby, I would give that a watch instantaneously. It would be a really cool show of a movie to see. It looks like the Back Bay of New York. It does look like Back Bay, and I would say a lot of the architecture here that we're seeing is inspired, or the Back Bay was inspired by us, or vice versa. We were inspired by the Back Bay. Yep, you guys got it. This is the House of the Royal Tenenbaums. It's a great, great movie. It takes place in New York City, directed by Wes Anderson. He filmed on the other scenes, like the summer house scenes, were in Roosevelt Island, so it wasn't a real summer house. And the exteriors were filmed here. The interiors were filmed somewhere else. And this was also featured in a few other films. It's a very unique house with a beautiful turret on the outside. Something to do about the in-laws. No, this is the Royal Tenenbaums, directed by Wes Anderson, starring Gene Hackman, Gwyneth Paltrow, Luke Wilson, Owen Wilson, Ben Stiller, and like so many other A-list actors. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna zigzag around a little bit because I wanna get back to this street. Actually, I'll do this. Yeah, let's go over here. You love that movie, Blakely and Happy, and Anne Light is from England. Welcome. It's an offbeat movie. It really is. It really is. It's an offbeat movie. 4K Wanderer, nice to see you here. It looks like you just made my day. Can't wait for Hamilton. Oh yeah, we're about to see a Hamilton location mentioned in the film, in the musical. It's quiet uptown. So, a little backstory about Aham, as fans of the musical affectionately call him. He was one of the founding fathers, and unfortunately he went through a family tragedy. And through that family tragedy, he decided to move up here. And in this movie, in the musical, there's also a movie you can watch on Disney Plus. Lin-Manuel Miranda expressed that feeling of grief in a beautiful song called It's Quiet Uptown. Hey Adam, how was Boston? I absolutely loved Boston. Came back 2 days ago. Look at the gorgeous houses. So many amazing houses here. Viorica, nice to see you here. Hello, Netherlands from Holland. Welcome. Where am I? Convent Avenue, New York City. Uptown Manhattan. Greetings, Glenn. This is gorgeous. I wish I had taken the time to walk around here, says Carolyn. Yeah, that's why I enjoy visiting this area. I've covered it a few times on Urbanist when making videos, mostly on Facebook. And I personally never get tired of this neighborhood. There's always so many wonderful things to see and do. So many construction going on. Yep. There's always construction going on. Let's zoom in on the houses. Okay, I don't think New York City is ever fully constructed. Hi, Susu. She says, welcome back to New York City. Be glad to be back to New York City. Must have been a very wealthy area back then. Yes, it was. So anytime you see a neighborhood called Heights, they're usually trying to show that they are very well off. Think of Brooklyn Heights, Morningside Heights, and my hometown neighborhood of Jackson Heights. Now, Jackson Heights actually isn't built on a high piece of terrain, but they just use the word heights in order to denote wealth. Anytime you see, Todd says also the term hills, yes, Forest Hills, and there might be a few other hills, neighborhood names in New York City. Let me know if you know of the other hill neighborhoods. So here we have these gorgeous row houses. Brooklyn Heights, Crown Heights, yep. Cobble Hill, which also is not a hill, but they call it to denote wealth. Bayside Hills, oh interesting, Action Kid. I didn't know Bayside had a hills section. The reason Uptown is the heights is because Lower Manhattan is flat, so the city wouldn't develop far up very long time, says B. Griffin. And they develop faster than they thought. They build here. Yes, so this is higher elevation, and we're about to see the views we can see from this elevation of downtown. Murray Hill as well. Ooh, a lot of hill names. Wow, actually, New York City has a lot of hill names. And even though New York City is not really known to be a hilly city like San Francisco or Boston or Rome or Athens, here we have Our Lady of Lourdes. This church is a very unique type of building. Doesn't quite look like your typical church. Well, it was designed, at first it was built for the Irish community that was here in New York City in the late 1800s. And of course it's a Catholic church. But usually Catholic churches are, different shape, as we know with St. Patrick's Cathedral and the countless other Catholic churches I've been to all around the city. Let's see if we can take a peek inside. I'm gonna try to take it. Hey. Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Have a good day.
Yeah, thank you. You too.
All right. So that was a gorgeous church. We got so lucky that the guy had it open and let us go inside. I've never been inside, even though I went to college right by here. So this church is usually closed. As I mentioned before, Catholic churches usually are open to the public. This is one of the rare Catholic churches that I've always seen closed. So we got really lucky today that we're able to go inside right before the guy closes. Now this has an unusual design, but why? Well, the Irish were the bottom of the barrel back in the late 1800s here in the US. So much so that there were huge signs outside of businesses that said, "No Irish need apply." NINA. It was an acronym that was plastered in many businesses that was hiring, but they didn't want to hire any Irishmen. That said, St. Patrick's Cathedral got most of the money because they were able to, be the premier church, the number one church. But every other Catholic church in that time of New York City's history wasn't quite so lucky to have enough funds. And that was the case with Reverend MacMahon's church, Our Lady of Lourdes. Now, some people are saying that's pronounced Lourdes. I'm pronouncing it in Spanish because I'm so used to pronouncing that name in Spanish. And he was very cash-strapped. So he had to do a very unique way of building this church. And he found out that St. Patrick's Cathedral was actually re-renovating their backside, where it was originally built by James Renwick, and they were going to destroy the wall on the backside and extend it back in order to build another chapel. Thus, it was a great opportunity to buy up those bricks. So this church is made with some bricks from St. Patrick's Cathedral. However, they had to search for bricks in other places around the city, and thus they went to other churches and other buildings that were being dismounted because in the Gilded Age of New York, there was a lot of rapid construction happening in the city, and he got bricks and stones from around 4 to 5 different buildings. But how do you cobble up all this and make it look fairly, uniform? Well, he hired a very unique architect, an Irishman, which ended up being one of the most important architects in New York City history that's fairly forgotten. His name is Cornelius O'Reilly. He was part of the architectural firm O'Reilly. And almost no one knows their names today, but they're involved in so many famous buildings, or so many used and still standing buildings in many US cities. They were one of the most popular architects / contractors in that time. And that's how he ended up cobbling this together. And it actually ended up working. Even though it has an unusual shape, it still makes it work. So Cornelius O'Reilly, pushing the Irish forward here in New York City. How about that, recycling? Yep. So pieces of stone here are from St. Patrick's Cathedral. Let's see architecture a little bit more. Man's humanity to man. Irish, Italians, Jews, Puerto Ricans all experienced hard times. Yep, they did it. They did. Indeed, they did. Nina, great comment. Happy said, clever builders, really clever to just recycle stones, which would have could have been just thrown away. I'm not entirely sure how stones are disposed of. If anyone knows those details, let us know in the comments. So, but I'm glad they were able to reuse it for another church, which is really awesome. Susu, you plan on going to Roosevelt Island because of my recent tour. Looking forward to the tram ride. Oh, cool, Susu. Do enjoy. It's such a wonderful area, as you already know. Hi, Václav. Nice to see you. History of architecture is so fascinating, says Dwayne. Yes, it is. It doesn't look mixed matched. No, it doesn't. There's other types of architecture that have been a little bit more mixed matched, and sometimes it's very obvious. This one is not so obvious at all. Probably just smashed up for road building, says Just Kate, when it comes to stones that are dismantled. Oh, interesting. Yeah, oh, that is interesting for road building. See if we can take a peek in this backyard. I think we can see something. Am I by 145th Street? Asked Adam. Yes, I passed by 145th. That's where I got off the subway, A train, and now we're on 142nd Street. Joe says good afternoon from Orlando, Florida. Your channel is the best. Thank you so much, Joe. I appreciate it. Oh, the ornate facade. Yeah. And it's quite magical to just bump into buildings, be able to go inside churches that usually are hard to get into. Do they get sunlight between those buildings? Good question. Yes and no. So that is actually a really, really good question. Ties into a peculiarity of New York City's grid system. So New York City's grid system, as we know it, is north, south, east, west. People say you're going uptown, you're going downtown, which is north, south. People say you're going west side or east side, right? However, it's not truly geographically aligned, north, south, east, west. For example, the Museum of Natural History, which is in 81st Street in the Upper West Side, is more east than the Lower East Side when you look at it geographically on the map. Because the world, of course, is spherical and it slants. So Manhattan is actually this way, oriented on the globe. Thus, thus the city grid system, when it was built in a way where all the houses, and I don't know this for sure, I'm talking about something I learned off the top of my head, so do your own research afterwards, but a lot of the houses were oriented in a way that only the north-facing homes end up getting sunlight all the time. Then the houses on the other side of the streets don't get any sunlight any of the time. And in the real estate of New York City, there is very high prices, and I think they're for north-sided homes. There might be for south-sided. Please correct me if I'm wrong. North-sided homes end up getting way higher prices and way higher value because they always get sunlight, and then the other ones never get sunlight, so they're a lot less valued. It's a quirk about New York City real estate and the grid system. So if you're ever buying a townhouse here in New York City, be mindful where your apartment building faces. And there must be more details on like if it's the streets or if it's the avenues or where they face, but it's a nice little quirk. So some buildings don't get no sunlight whatsoever. However, we are stopping by the Grange. Ask Robin. The Grange used to be right here. But wait a minute, it's an empty lot. Here's the statue of good old Alexander Hamilton. Lived from 1757 to 1804. Hamilton's Grange used to be right here in this location, smushed up between St. Luke's Episcopal Church and these apartment buildings. When I used to go to college back between 2009 all the way to 2013, for many of the years I was in college, the house was right here. I remember passing by and seeing Hamilton's Grange, a house built in the late 1700s. But something peculiar was happening. It was too crammed in, thus it couldn't really be open for visitors and tourists. And also we were just a few years shy of the great Hamilton explosion. So they decided to move the house, actually elevate the entire house and move it one block away, right next to this, oh, a black squirrel. That is rare. Very rare you see a black squirrel in New York City. There's two of them. Oh my God. What? They're chasing each other. What happened here? Now this was the second time that the house moved. It was here for nearly 100 years. The original location was about a block away, so it was around this area, this plot of land. So, my man Hamilton, son of a Scotsman, blah, 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 blah. Let me know if you know the words. There is not in the, I'm reading what it says here. There is not in the Constitution of the United States an element of order or force or duration which has not powerfully contributed to introduce and cause to predominate. So Guizot, someone was writing about Hamilton. And below it says the smote, the rock, and the national resources and abundant streams of revenue gushed forth. This man is responsible for the US being an economic and financial powerhouse. To this day, the American dollar is the most widely used currency and the most dependable currency in the entire world. Of course, that might change, but that has been the case for the past 300 years. Boston black cats, New York black squirrels. Hey, Mr. Hamilton, yep. So let's go and see where the house went. Where did this house go? Let's try to find it. Someone took Hamilton's house. It has to be here somewhere. And here we're starting to see the entrance to City College. We're gonna go into City College soon. Hey, Helen, I'm doing well. When I was a kid, there was a lot of black squirrels along Van Cortlandt. Oh, interesting. I rarely see them in Manhattan, so to me it was very kind of surprising. Maybe the squirrels are doing their own vlog, says Dwayne. Maybe. They're trying to make little black squirrels. I think so. We might see many more black squirrels popping up soon. Can you show one of those who may never get to New York the whole statue? I hope I did. Yeah, I hope you were able to see the full statue. I think I showed most of it. Well, let's go show the house. I'll show you more detail. Hello, sub. Hello, CRH. Diane says it's your alma mater. Oh, very cool.
Yeah, how do you paint it on the box?
Crystal says my office is cackling. There are probably a dozen black squirrels at the yard right now. Oh, you guys are lucky. We only had 2 black squirrels in all of New York. Here, ladies and gentlemen, is the Grange of Alexander Hamilton. And I think we might be able to enter. And this might be the case. Let's see. So before I go inside, I'll actually tell you a little bit from the outside. So, as we mentioned, this is downtown Manhattan. It's uptown. Hamilton used to work down here. And this is where the house, it was moved, as I showed you before. And here's an original drawing of the Grange. This is where the house was before it was smushed with a new apartment building between St. Luke's Episcopal. So right down there. What is the population? What is the black squirrel population in New York versus the brown and gay squirrel? Adam, I would not get into that topic. All squirrels are equal over here. I respect all squirrels. So right here, Hamilton Range. So I'm hoping we can go inside. Hamilton. He was a founding father, the aide of George Washington, the man who built our financial system here in the U.S. If it weren't for Hamilton, the U.S. could have gone a very different direction. Think about this. Mexico also had an independence around the same time from the Spanish Empire and a few scuffles with the French. They decided to not build a robust financial system. what happened to Mexico. Let's keep it at that. But that's for another video. What happened to Hamilton? Well, he had a scuffle with many, many different people in power, and a lot of people didn't like him. And one day, his son, Philip Hamilton, is at the theater with one of his friends. Remind me of his friend's name again. It's slipping my mind. And they were going to, they were at the theater, and then they heard this man, George Eaker. They saw him at the theater, and they were pissed off when they saw him because George Eaker did a speech the day before railing against Hamilton, saying he was a terrible person for this nation, could have easily been Julius Caesar if we let him get power. Now, the attacks with Hamilton are sometimes a bit murky, the intentions behind them, because Hamilton was a foreigner. He wasn't from the US. He wasn't from any of the 13 colonies. He was from the Caribbean. He was a Caribbeaner coming here to the US, an immigrant. When people said that, should we give him power or not, were they railing against his economic policies, or were they railing because he was an immigrant? Maybe it was a little bit of both. But nonetheless, Philip Hamilton was pissed off. And he and his friend approached George Eaker, who was a lawyer here in New York, around the same age. Hamilton was in his late teens, about, 17, 18, around there. George Eaker was in his early 20s. And they challenged him to a duel, both of them together. Hamilton's friend had the duel, but they called it off. They raised their pistols, done. Then comes Philip Hamilton versus George Eaker. They go all the way to Weehawken, New Jersey, just above Hoboken, which we visited a few weeks ago. Why did they go to New Jersey to have a duel? Well, because dueling was illegal here in New York City. And as we know about New Jersey, everything is legal in New Jersey. No, I'm just joking. But New Jersey didn't heavily enforce people who dueled. George Eaker raises his pistol. Hamilton raises his pistol. But let's go to the night before. Hamilton, the father, Alexander, is confiding with his son, who's asking him for advice, because Hamilton has actually been involved in a few duels, way before what we know eventually happens. He survived, of course, all of them. He didn't even fire shots in any of them. There was a code to dueling called the Code Duello. It was a code already, maybe 100, 200 years old. And there was a way, a procedure to completely not go through the duel. To both of you amicably decide to point and shoot upwards. And that's what Alexander told Philip to do. Don't shoot him. You'll regret it if you do. Go to the dueling ground, face him eye to eye, and give up your shot. Shoot upwards. Philip goes to the dueling ground, and he gives up his shot, shoots upwards. George Eaker could have shot upwards, but he really didn't like Hamilton. And he wasn't going to let his son get away with it. So he points his gun at Philip Hamilton and shoots him. Hamilton is bleeding to death. He's rushed across the Hudson to Manhattan, and he dies in the arms of his father, Alexander Hamilton, and his mother, Eliza Hamilton. He lost his son, telling him to give up his shot. And his son was just trying to defend his father's honor. This devastated Hamilton. It devastated Eliza, it devastated the entire family. It devastated so much the family that their daughter ended up having a mental breakdown and never recovered. She used to talk to Philip Hamilton even though he was already dead. Not at his grave, but talk to him as if he were alive, as if they were in the same room together. Eliza and Alexander never chatted together. They couldn't bear. There was probably a lot of resentment. Alexander Hamilton, made a lot of enemies, and he told his son to give up the shot. Maybe Eliza was pissed off about that. Who knows? So Hamilton decided to start anew. He couldn't bear to walk through the streets of downtown Manhattan, being reminded of his son's death, being reminded of his daughter's subsequent mental breakdown, and her denial that Philip ever passed away. And thus, they moved uptown, just like the beautiful song made by Lin-Manuel Miranda. And he decided to finally own the home, which his family never owned a home in the Caribbean. But his grandfather owned a home in Scotland called the Grange, and he decided to make his own Grange over here. And this ended up being the only home that Hamilton ever owned. This was built by his architect friend, John Macomb Jr. John Macomb Jr.'s name might sound familiar if you're into American history, because he also designed the Capitol building. And I think he also designed the original White House before it was made into stone. He also designed Gracie Mansion, which is across the city, and it's the current mayoral house. And of course, we all know what ends up happening with Alexander Hamilton. He ends up passing away, killed by Vice President Aaron Burr. Only one of two vice presidents to ever shoot someone in office. The other one being Dick Cheney, but he didn't shoot a guy to death. Well, the song, I think, is a very important story, because how do you write a song about a musical that tends to be pretty kind of upbeat about Alexander Hamilton's life, despite the sad ending? Hamilton did so many great things for this country. As I mentioned, there were very similar countries nearby us that did not bother building a financial system, and they turned out very differently for almost 200 years. Well, he was struggling with writing this song. Lin-Manuel Miranda, the composer, actor, and lyricist of Hamilton. And he was being produced by George Easthues, who was a famous producer of Broadway. But he mostly produced off-Broadway. He was responsible for Spring Awakening. And they were about to premiere at the Public Theater. And yet he couldn't get the song out. He had no idea how to express this grief, because luckily Lin-Manuel Miranda, who's a New Yorican, similar to me, just like me, never experienced a personal tragedy on that scale. So he didn't know how to relate. But during the production, George Easthues, I think I'm getting his name correct, please correct me if I'm wrong, his son ends up passing away. And he's devastated. And Lin-Manuel Miranda is also devastated, because his son was fairly young. Such a popular Broadway producer, to lose a son at such an early age due to a sudden illness, it's terrible for any parent. And Lin-Manuel Miranda just had his first child with his wife. So looking at his child's eyes and knowing that what if he lost him, he felt for George, his producer. And over just one night, he wrote It's Quiet Uptown. He then tried to kind of address the sadness head on, the grief, the death. But he tried to address what one does to get through the grief. And in the song, and what Alexander Hamilton did, was to go to a place that was much quieter, up here, when there was not that much city life around us. There wasn't a burgeoning college, which we're about to see soon. There was none of this. This was truly a grange, just like if you were go to the Highlands of Scotland. And it's quiet uptown. And he sent that song just that night to George Astius, his producer, and he just cried. He was so deeply touched, and his wife was so deeply touched by that song. And he said, hey, let's put this immediately into the musical. And right now, in my opinion, that's one, I would say that's one of my favorite songs of the entire musical. Such a great, great song. So give it a listen. Let's see if we can maybe go inside, or maybe we can go around it. I'll show you more of the house. The public theater is nearby Astor Place. Yes, it is. It's still there. And that's where Hamilton had its off-Broadway debut. The super rich are leaving New York City. Who's going to fill the tax gap? Oh, I'm based a Welshman. I do not talk about politics or current news. Feel free to ask me anything about history or travel. Many other great channels for that. The super rich have left. Oh no, 4K. Mr. Jones says City College of New York most famous alumni was Gordon Gekko. Interesting, Mr. Jones. Where are you getting that information? And Robin says Hamilton's mother also lived on the plantation St. Croix, known as the Grange. Oh, cool. Interesting. Okay. So they also had a Grange in St. Croix. Hamilton's previous duels never got to the dueling ground stage. Yep. The only one that came to pistols was the one that killed him. Okay, so he never actually picked up a pistol. But he was challenged and did challenge 2 duels before. It's said that Hamilton wanted to die because of his outrageous debt. I don't think he was in massive debt. He just didn't have that much money. Hamilton, contrary to popular belief, never actually kept any of the money that, he never funneled money back into himself, nor he didn't get any kickbacks, nor did he make any business in his favor. He was a very good lawyer as well, and he did not take advantage of it. He used every cent to work more and to build that financial system more. So much so that he used his own money also to build various clubs. I forgot what was the name of the club, but he built one club here in New York City that was furthering the cause for the financial institutions here. Hey, big dog, you say exploring Boston was awesome. Similar style to the Morris Jumel mansion. Yep. I'm not sure. If anyone can let me know. I'm not sure if George McComb Jr. also built the Morris Jumel mansion. Let me know. The house looks humble. We reach in history. Yes, it is pretty humble home, yeah. And the Grange equals a farm. In a way, yeah. Maybe not so much the case here. I think they were using that term more generally. And Hannah, hello. Hello, Deanne. Welcome. Thank you so much for the stars. I appreciate it. Hamilton was very against bartering because it was hard to tax. Yes, I can imagine, Kim. Any reports of ghosts? No, actually not. No, there hasn't been reports of Hamilton's ghosts. Though there are reports of Aaron Burr's ghost, but not here, in the Morris Jumel mansion, which I've done a video of it before, so perhaps you can visit it or see it later. Am I in St. Nicholas Park? Yes, this is St. Nicholas Park. Yep, I'm here. And here we have a very interesting perspective. I don't think it's open, unfortunately. The house is closed. At least they open up the ground so you can walk close to it. But let me show you something before we go closer to the church. Hello, Action Kid. Hello, Andreas. Hello, Johan. This is St. Nicholas Park. Right down there we have Harlem. There's a little bit of a micro neighborhood here. I think it's called Manhattanville, sometimes people call it. And this side I'm on right now is Hamilton Heights. And Happy Trek, you think you could sing the song of It's Quiet Uptown? I don't know too much of the song lyrics. I just know forgiveness. Can you imagine the unbearable? Something along those lines. I might be Nuyorican like Lin-Manuel Miranda, but I am nowhere near as good of a singer or composer as him. But if anyone could post a little bit of the lyrics on the comments, I'll be so grateful. I'm always dumbfounded by the relocation of structures. Me too. This is Hamilton's house, Virginia. Yep. I bet Hamilton's ghost has visited the house. Yeah, there hasn't really been reports of his ghost. I think he died. You know, it was a tragic death, but I don't know. Something tells me that he went out when he wanted to go out, I think. Eliza also did not, she was in grief for a time after, but soon dedicated almost her entire life, more than 50 years, to surviving, to keeping alive Hamilton's name. Please don't let your dog put a poop on the Hamilton's lawn. Yeah, a few dogs are here. All right, so here we have Manhattan Schist. This is what New York City's buildings are built upon. Everything we see in Midtown Manhattan and Downtown Manhattan is right here, this schist. This schist also has striations, lines from the last ice age. New York City used to be covered by more than 1,700 feet plus of ice. The very maximum of the great glaciers that covered North America 13,000 years ago was right here in modern day New York. But suddenly those glaciers melted and left marks all along these schists, making a very unique geographic terrain of New York. And is this the bedrock? Yep, we're looking at the bedrock right now. But this ties into our exploration of City College, also known as the Hogwarts of New York. Because you see that building over there? It's meant to look like it's popping out from the schist and rising into the skies above. Let's go up to City College. But first, let's take a little bit of closer look at the house and make our way up there. The Younger Dryas. Yep, Blue Smoker, I'm glad you know that term. The Younger Dryas. I still wish it was open, but I did go inside about 2 years ago. Watch that video on Facebook. If anyone could on YouTube, can drop my Facebook link. You'll see it there. For the people already on Facebook, just go to the videos tab or search Urbanist Hamilton, and it'll probably be one of the search results. You'll see it. So, Gwen says Dutch architecture. Yeah, I think George McComb Jr. was inspired by some Dutch architecture. Because, he has that kind of roofs, same as the Dutch. So, one thing I wanted to mention is Alexander Hamilton was a little bit pissed off by George McComb. Not because of the house, but how he designed the gardens. He designed the gardens in a way where they were sloping, and they had a bunch of sweet gum trees. Each tree, there was 13 of them, representing the 13 colonies. And George Hamilton just did not like the look of Hamilton, sorry, just did not like the look of it. And he always complained about it until one day he just like destroyed the garden and just like replaced it with something else. So that was a little quirk about Hamilton. All right, everyone, cue the Harry Potter music by John Williams. Dun, 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 dun. There we go. Oh, new halal cart. Ooh, it smells good. It smells really good, actually. That's a big streetcar. The legendary group Sugar Hill Gang gets the name from the Sugar Hill neighborhood in Hamilton Heights. Yeah, Sugar Hill is adjacent to Hamilton Heights. It's also its own neighborhood. It might have been named Sugar Hill before, but people consider Sugar Hill the next neighborhood down. But yeah, you're right. The Sugar Hill Gang is named after that hill as well. Here is the Grove School of Engineering. Now, City College used to be known as a free radical college, meaning that it was open to all classes and all races. So Irishmen, African Americans, Puerto Ricans, white Anglo-Saxon Americans could all come here together and study together. And this is their premier engineering college, which I attended. This is my alma mater, yep. This is where I got my degree in electrical engineering and spent many, many hours burrowed into the library, studying countless differential mathematics and quantum physics. But we're not going to talk about engineering today. We're going to talk about architecture. Here's a great view that a lot of people don't realize of the Hamilton Grange. We can see it from up here, which is really cool from this perspective. It's so empty. Yeah, I don't think that many people are attending classes personally. The building is almost as ugly as Boston City Hall. Yeah, you're gonna see some very controversial architecture here in City College, along with the beautiful Hogwarts-like architecture. Yeah, it's a good combination, B. Griffin. Wow, the memories, says Diane. All right, before we continue walking, I gotta take a water break. But Diane, let us know, what did you graduate from? And if you care to share, what's your graduating class? I'm so curious. I graduated 2013 from a bachelor's in electrical engineering. So let me know what you graduated with. All right, I'm gonna take a water break. Feel free to ask me any questions about Uptown Manhattan. And love the top bit of the house. Me too. It's a very nice house. And it has 4 chimneys, as we saw. Ah, all right. There we go. Diane got a BA in architecture in 1974. That's amazing. Oh, so cool. And Diane, architecture. You know, me and my classmates, who are mostly engineering, electrical, civil, and I had a few also in biomedical, we had a little inside joke with our engineering classmates where we always wondered where the architectural majors were because we never saw them. We had classes, the same classes in the beginning, like differential mathematics and calculus, all the calculuses, and a few others like physics and chemistry. But yet, we never met them. And we were so puzzled. Where were the architectural students? We never saw them in the libraries. We never saw them anywhere. So we always had like weird theories as to where the architectural students studied. And one of those rumors that popped up is that the architectural students used to study in the tunnels that run underneath this university that date back to the very founding in the 1847, because they wouldn't be kicked out at around 10 p.m. from the library. They can study there 24/7. That was just a rumor. It was a little inside joke, but I'll show you why the architectural students weren't really seen in school, because they had their own gorgeous building, which we'll see towards the end of this video. Greetings, Manny. Nice to see you here. Mr. Jones says, Colin Powell, Jonas Salk, Woody Allen, Henry Kissinger, Ed Koch, Uptown Sinclair, and of course me, Ariel Vieira, are all alumni of City College. Yep. They have upwards of 9 Nobel Prize winners. It's a huge amount of Nobel Prize winners graduated here. One of the universities with the most. And of course, all the names you mentioned. Yeah, the alumni list is gigantic. Check it out on Wikipedia, it's gigantic. Here, one of the many famous doorways or entrances of City College. Established in 1847, this is the oldest, or the second oldest, university in all of Manhattan, but this is the oldest campus in all of Manhattan. The oldest university is King's College, which turned into Columbia University, but the oldest campus is this one, 1847, older than Columbia. And with this rock. What rock is this? Hint, hint, we just saw it. Let me know in the comments, what rock are we looking at? What rock are we looking at with this building? This is Shepard Hall, another place I took a lot of classes in. And it was named after this lawyer, George Shepard. Or Edward Shepard, who was a lawyer. Here is how the building looked like when they were around when it initially opened in the late 1800s. Or that was one of the other buildings nearby, and this was the campus, aerial view. And the architect of this building was George Post. Another name you might recognize if you're into American history or architecture. He's built many, many popular buildings in Manhattan and a few other major cities like Chicago as well. What's the King's College downtown? King's College was is Columbia University. It turned into Columbia University, was renamed. It used to be downtown. Alexander Hamilton attended King's College. But this is City College. It's an aerial view. Aerial view. Yep, that aerial view. It's an aerial view. And here's the building we're looking at right now. Shepard Hall. Let's take a closer look. Hello, Ronald from Manila. ¿Cómo está acá? Either the old version of CCNY or NYU, can't remember which. Says B. Griffin. Holy schist. Yep, holy schists indeed. This is made out of Manhattan schist. It is a very very rare building material, even in New York City. They use their own schist to build this building. Imagine using your own schist to construct a university. The university completely constructed of schist. But why did they use Manhattan schist? Well, like all things in New York City, whenever you run out of money, you gotta start thinking about new ways of building. That was the case with the church we visited earlier, Our Lady of Lourdes, and that was the case right here with City College. They quite didn't have enough money. For comparison, City College endowment nowadays is around $240, $250 million. The endowment of Harvard University, which we visited last week, is $41 billion. Big difference. City College, being a public university and all, open to all races and all classes, quite didn't have enough money to build with expensive marble or red brick. And thus they used their own schist in order to make a very unique architectural building that looked like it was sticking out, jutting out from the hill and continuing. It's a really gorgeous beauty. But the cool thing is, George Post was very clever to accompany it with some stone, which is pretty hollow. It's just a facade, so he cheated a little bit for cost, but this is real schist, really hard. And he accompanied it with gargoyles, grotesques, all around the building. Look at these. This is why it's called the Hogwarts of New York. Cue the music. Oh, wish you can go in. I wish I can go in as well. I did this university, it's already been like 7 years, so I think my ID is already outdated. I wish I could go in there as well. So Shepard Hall was made after Edward Morse Shepard, as I showed before, the class of 1869, who was a lawyer with an active interest in civil service reform and forest conservation. And this is called the Gothic Quadrangle. The quad is right over here. Let's walk a little bit more to the quad. I'm gonna see if this is open. Just nope, it's closed. Okay. And here we see the grotesques. So I was told that City College is cheap, and you're from New York, but expensive if you're not. It is cheap if you are within New York State. If you're an out-of-state student, it's just about twice the price. But that twice the price is really not that big. It pales in comparison to the debt that people who go into NYU or any private university gets into. For example, the debt I had coming out of this university was a whopping $2,500. It wasn't that much. I paid off my debt fairly quickly. So I got really lucky with the Bachelor's of Electrical Engineering. Basically came out with zero debt. So look at the stained glass windows as well. Looks like a Gothic, dark Gothic cathedral. As I mentioned, Hogwarts. Now, one of the grotesques features the old City College within its arms. Look at that. I don't know exactly where that grotesque is. I remember seeing a version, at least there was one of them inside the building, because a few of the gargoyles were starting to fall off, and they were putting them in the main hall, and I used to pass by them and able to touch them close. So B. Griffith says, massive debt, Ariel. Are you still paying it off? That's why you started this channel? Oh yes, I started this channel 4 years ago to pay off that massive, massive debt of $2,500. I don't want to make light. There are people with very strong debt, and student debt is a huge issue. I consider myself lucky and stress-free not going to a public university. So I'm very grateful for this university. It was a really awesome university, gorgeous building, and almost no debt. It was very inexpensive. So I got a good education for a very inexpensive price. It was nice. So, okay, so I use the term gargoyles, which isn't quite accurate, though there should be gargoyles a little bit further up, which I think we'll see from a different angle. Yeah, we gotta go to a different angle. But what we see down here are what are called grotesques. Some gargoyles are grotesques, but not all grotesques are gargoyles. Gargoyles comes from the French word to gargle, to let out water, to let out liquid. Thus, gargoyles are a fixture upon Gothic cathedrals to let out water, to run off. Because if too much water accumulates on the roof of a Gothic structure, that roof might just collapse. And thus gargoyles were also decorative, and they were made into grotesque gargoyles. The most famous ones, of course, are the ones on top of the Cathedral of Notre Dame in Paris, France. But here I think they do have legit gargoyles, so we have to take a closer look. Actually, here is a great way. So here we can see a little bit more actual gargoyles. A little bit further up there. You see there in the corner, right here? Oh, big finger, right there. Actual gargoyles. Interesting origin of the word, didn't know that. Yep, B. Griffin, the more you know. And let me show you the quad. Scary faces, yeah. Huge tower right over here. And Convent Avenue tends to be always empty. I think they stop traffic usually when college is in full session. Don't prick your finger on all those pointy objects. Indeed, B. Griffin. Did they manage to save the gargoyles in Paris? Asked Kay. Great question. I hope so. I don't know, but I do hope so. If anyone knows that information, do let us know in the comments. Were the gargoyles saved in the Great Notre Dame fire of 2018? Was it? Here is the quad. This is where I spent many days drinking copious amounts of coffee with a stack of textbooks. And time for a second water break before we see a little bit more of the university. Let me know if anyone has any questions. See a little bit more of the university. I'll try to find a little bit more of the gargoyles to show you from this angle. Why is the flag half-mast? In honor of, how do you say her name? Ruth Ginsburg? Ruth B. Ginsburg? RBJ. Supreme Court Justice. Very badass woman in her own regard. She passed away, I think due to old age, and they're putting a half-mast in her honor. Crystal has to log off, but thank you so much. My pleasure, Crystal. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is gonna be about like 30 more minutes, so we can see a little bit more of the university. And it's an incredibly beautiful campus. Oh, it really is. She passed away due to cancer. Oh no. Okay, it's sad to see her pass away due to cancer. Okay, here we see actual gargoyles. There we go. With 2 ominous ravens flying above 3 ominous ravens. They're here to send us a message. Perfect timing. Because I have a few commenters who watch via Raven. They send their comments via Raven. So remember, you can comment on Facebook, YouTube, or via Raven. So right here, actual gargoyles. I think they look like actual gargoyles. Aesthetically, they might also be functionally gargoyles. Because you see the mouths open, those mouths would be where the water runs off. So RBJ died of pancreatic cancer. Oh, very sad to hear. She did live a long life, which is good. I love your storytelling voices, says Tara. Oh, I'm glad you like my storytelling voices. Thank you. I'm tempted to audition for some audiobooks. Your heights where you lived and studied both amazingly beautiful, Ariel. Happy, you know, that's an interesting coincidence. I grew up in Jackson Heights and I studied in Hamilton Heights. 2 heights. Are those gargoyles similar to the ones guarding Chicago? I think they are. I think they're in the same shape. Here we have more traditional iconography. We have a lion. 2 lions. Kay says I need to do another dramatic reading. Sure, Kay. Yeah. I really do want to do more dramatic readings. Maybe I'll bring them to TikTok. So do follow me on TikTok or you'll see them posted on my Facebook. All right, let's go down, let's explore. Now we saw the Hogwarts portion of the university, but let's go and visit the portion of the university that looks like a jail. Yep, I'm not exaggerating. There is a literal building here that looks like a jail for one important reason, because college is prison. No, I'm just joking. But before we do, let's look at this guy. Alexander Webb, president of the college from 1869 all the way to 1902, dressed in army regalia. He was the major general, commander of the Philadelphia Brigade, and he was a Civil War hero who fought in the Battle of Gettysburg, probably one of the most famous battles of the entire Civil War, which we see a depiction of it right here. He led the Philadelphia Brigade to victory and then became the president of the college. This was erected in 1917. And this campus is gorgeous to pass when it is snowy weather. I have like a photo, a very old photo on my personal Instagram of this campus covered in snow. It's absolutely gorgeous. Hello, love pugs. Hello, LOL, hi. We have many people tuning in. Welcome, everyone. Do like this video if you're enjoying it. More likes do help with bringing this video to more people. The more people I have watching, the more videos I can do of unique places. Pat, indeed, but no politics on this channel. Feel free to ask me anything about history. Mary, hello, thank you so much for the stars. That's how real men used to fight. Like Alexander Webb, indeed. Sounds of the City, you're on the break and currently joined, awesome. And more gargoyles over here, look at this. Oh my God, this college is full of treasures. How was the food at City College? I've talked about ghosts. I've talked about terrible things that have happened to humanity. I've talked about disasters and riots. But nothing was more scarier, more terrifying, more frightening than the lunch at City College. And I'll show you, because it was in this building, the North Academic Center, also known as the NAC building. It looks a little bit like a detention center. I don't feel very collegiate when I used to come to this building. Many of my classes, my first 2 years, actually all 4 years, I was here a little bit longer, I was here 6 years, were here. Nope, I did not feel very collegiate. I felt like I was heading to a detention center. And the cafeteria was right here. However, there was a big controversy with the cafeteria, which I'll tell you right now. Some personal history. This is where all the main services for the city colleges, all the clubs meet here. Every freshman has classes here, and definitely within all your entire college career, you'll have classes here because by far it's the biggest building. But it looks like a detention center. It looks like a prison. Why? Why does it look like a prison? Why did they design a prison in the middle of a university? Is it because they were trying to be brutalist? Nope. This is not a brutalist building. I think brutalist buildings are a little bit more gorgeous than this. No offense to the architect. I do understand this type of functional type of building, but the architect who built this was responsible for building a majority of the America's maximum security prisons. Yes, it's the same architect that built maximum security prisons all around the United States of America. If anyone knows his name, let me know in the comments. I didn't even bother researching his name because frankly, when I look at this building, I really don't care too much about it. But let me know his name if anyone does. Yep, he's responsible for building prisons. That's why this looks like a prison. But now to the lunch. Let's go over here. I'll show you the cafeteria. Purpose over style. Yeah, function over form. Really enjoy your walks, says Joe. Oh, so glad you do. Looks like a hospital. It does, yeah. Some hospitals do have a similar style as well. Also not a really pleasant atmosphere to want to, become a college graduate and change the world by doing engineering things. Doesn't quite induce that spirit. Attending a school that looks like either like a detention center or a hospital. And, it was very jarring because you have a detention center / hospital, and you have Hogwarts. That building was nice. Okay, so here is the college, and you can see me with the gimbal. This is the cafeteria. And we can't really see too much of it because of the reflection. But this is the cafeteria. The cafeteria. First year of college, I came to the cafeteria. I didn't know too much about the city yet. I wasn't really too adventurous with food. This area of Manhattan really wasn't a food scene yet. That changed after I graduated. We'll see a little bit of it once we go to Amsterdam Avenue. And thus, I just went to the cafeteria to get my lunch that first year. I didn't know too many people and didn't know about what deli sandwiches or halal food to get. Now, about 2 months in of going to eat this food, which tasted terrible, also gave me various stomach aches various times, I see it coming one morning, with my pile of textbooks, because this was the era a little bit before iPads. Thus, we didn't have the accessibility of having fully digital textbooks. So I just had paper textbooks, or I had real textbooks with a huge hardcover. Afterwards, I started bringing printed version of the textbook, just chapter by chapter, so I didn't have to carry a huge bag. But that first year, I was with a huge bag, strolling into the college university, and about to grab my breakfast at this terrible cafeteria, and it's closed. A huge marker in the front says, shut down by the health department. It had a C- rating. But when it was shut down, it was even lower than that. And for a few days, that cafeteria had to do something. I'm not sure what they did. But it was completely shut down. And thus, that incentivized me as a student to go to a different place. I went to just one block away to eat much better deli sandwiches. And then sooner I went further downtown in the afternoon to eat Dos Toros. So yeah, nothing scarier than bad college cafeteria. No wonder you had all those stomach aches. Indeed, indeed, indeed. Says B. Griffin. Yeah, indeed. Let's see if I can enter here. No, it's closed. Okay. So not much more to see here. The library is also inside here, which is very unfortunate for the library. C- for cafeteria run by the city. Wow. I'm glad it happened so you didn't get more sick from the food. Indeed, yeah. I'm glad it closed down so I could just go somewhere else. All right, now let's go downstairs and explore a little bit more of the Roman Colosseum that used to be here in City College. Wait, there used to be a Roman Colosseum? Yep. We can't see it, but I'll show you where it was. Can we go back to Hogwarts? Ask Gwen. Yeah, we'll see a little bit of Hogwarts on this end of the university. This is another of the buildings, another modern style, or modern for 1960s, 70s. This is the Marshak Building. Here I had the huge college lectures where there was like almost like 100 students. Took physics, and I took physics. One time I had a physics class with Michio Kaku. If you're a fan of the Science Channel, Discovery Channel, or any type of science documentary that's in English, you've probably seen a Japanese American man, who has long gray hair and is very good at explaining science. His name is Michio Kaku, and he's one of the most famous pop scientists, or scientists that are popular, not pop scientists, but a scientist who's popular in television and known all around the world, along with the likes of Neil deGrasse Tyson. He taught here, and I took classes with him. And one of the classes I took with him, he had to teach thermodynamics. And thermodynamics, learning that as a young college student, it's a bit of a dense subject. And he was telling us the entire history of humanity through the point of view of thermodynamics, and I was blown away. To me, it felt like I was actually watching a Discovery Channel documentary in real life. It was really cool. So I've always treasured that memory of learning from Michio Kaku in person. Really, really great teacher. No way you had classes with Michio Kaku. Yes, I did. Yep. He was a sub for my physics class, and he was my lab teacher. When he was my laboratory teacher, because whenever you take physics classes, you have to do, or it wasn't a physics class. It was like an engineering type of physics class. And I had him as a laboratory teacher, where you you apply physics, so you do experiments. And he was supposed to teach us, but he never did. he just like sat there in the corner and just slept. He just took a nap every time we had a laboratory. We just like learned from the workbook, and he gave everyone A's. So here's the last of the Hogwarts buildings. This is the theater building, or one of the historic buildings. Right behind is the theater building. One of the historic buildings. Probably seen them on YouTube. Yeah, Michio Kaku has a lot of like video clips on YouTube. Yeah, this is the theater building. So here's the theater building. But before there was a theater here, there was a huge Roman Colosseum. Right here used to be City College's Colosseum. Unfortunately, it was torn down in order to make way for more buildings. But look at that, Roman Colosseum in the middle of New York. I wish it was still around. That would have been so amazing to still see this amazing structure right over here. They didn't put too much emphasis in theater in City College. No, they did not. No. So I wish that Roman Colosseum was still here. Now this is one of the newer buildings that was constructed while I was attending university and finished. This looks different from what I imagined. Can you change this building? Well, this is the School of Architecture, the Bernard and Anne Spitzer School of Architecture, which I think they might be related to one of the major politicians of the early 2000s. New building. Cool thing about the rooftop, if you go to the rooftop of this building, it has one of the best views of Manhattan. Unfortunately, you can only get in if you're a student, but when I was a student, I would go to the rooftop. They had like a beautiful seating area. And since we are in the second highest point in Manhattan after the Morris Jumel Mansion, you can see amazing views of Central Park and downtown Manhattan. I wish I could go up there. It would be so nice to finish this video there. What is left of the Colosseum? Not much. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe it might be this wall that might be left of the Colosseum, though don't quote me on that. I'm not entirely sure. I don't think anything, unfortunately. But maybe this wall, because this wall does predate the architecture building. Brutalism. No, this is not brutalism. It looks like it, but I'll take a closer look. It's not actually made of raw concrete. This is what you would call maybe international style, just a little bit more artsier. Flying a drone in City College is highly illegal. Highly illegal. So no, I wouldn't fly a drone in New York City. I do have a drone, and I hope to use it maybe somewhere else in the near future when I travel again. All right, everyone. Let me know. I'll show you. Let me know if you want to see a little bit of the nearby like food and coffee, which is right by Amsterdam Avenue. And if you have any last remaining questions, feel free to ask. I'll be live for about 10 more minutes, and I'll tell you an anecdote, a personal one, of my freshman year taking a public speaking course. Let me know if you want to know that anecdote. And Julio says boring. Well, Julio, well, I'm sorry if this is boring you. Many other shows you could watch on YouTube. All right, let me know if you want to know something that really changed my life to the point that I end up making videos. Why am I not an engineer? Why am I not out there making cool technology that makes people levitate? Why instead am I making videos? Oh, let me know if you want to know that story as we walk to Amsterdam Avenue. Isn't there an overlook spot associated with Edgar Allan Poe? Asked B. Griffin. I think you might be referring to Turtle Bay, which is right underneath Kips Bay. I think that was the outlook point that was associated with Edgar Allan Poe. How old is the college? 1847. So these buildings, 1847. Oldest university in all of New York, 173 years old, 1847 to now 173 years old. Technology has many different applications. It really does, yes. Oh, Julio says boring the building. Oh, okay. Julio. Thank you for clarifying, Julio. Sorry, I used to have someone who would just constantly say that the video is boring, and they would just still watch it after every video. I'm not entirely sure why. I guess they like self-torture. So I appreciate you clarifying. All right, everyone. So first year I was here, I had to take a public speaking course, and of course, being a freshman, I never really was an extroverted person in my early life, and never really spoke out loud in classes. I barely spoke to my professors. When I was in high school and before, I barely spoke to my teachers. I did not like doing presentations. And I do this presentation for a public speaking course, and I had my final. And there was a few of the students, I was really nervous for it. We had to talk about something we were passionate about and what we would want to see in our futures. And I remember the kids who were also doing the course were so bad, just terrible at the public speaking. No offense to them. Most of them were engineering students and architectural students and biomed. So they weren't ever going to do really anything related to public speaking. But there was one kid who had to go right before me, who was staring right at me for the entire speech. Nervous, stuttering, really kind of sweating bullets, and just staring at me. You know, in public speaking, you usually have to look around at each person. I do that whenever I do a tour or when I've done panels on conferences. He was just staring at me the entire time, and I thought to myself, God damn it, I could do way better than any of these guys. They were so bad that I thought to myself, yeah, I cannot let this class end with a terrible slew of speeches. And I got up there, I did my speech of electrical cars, because to me at that time I was really passionate about the future of electric vehicles, which you probably heard me talk about before, because I talk a lot about driverless cars, which are also electric. And I end up giving that speech, and I end up just feeling into my passion for electric vehicles, really getting into it. And I'm done with the speech. Something along the lines, because I wrote it from the heart. I love writing, so I wrote it from the heart of electrical vehicles. I'm passionate that it's going to change the world in terms of its environmental efficiency and everything. And my teacher, my professor, who was also a New Yorican, and he just started laughing. And I was like, oh shit. Not only was everyone else bad, I was probably the worst of them all, I thought to myself. The guy is literally laughing out loud after finishing my public speaking final. And he nods his head, and he says, I don't think you're gonna be an engineer. And when I first heard that, I felt like, oh, I must have done a terrible, terrible job. And then I get my report card, and it ends up being an A+. I end up acing that course. I end up realizing what he meant by, I don't think you're going to be an engineer. I don't see that you're going to be an engineer in your future. What he meant was that I wasn't meant to sit down in the desk, which is totally cool, but not for me. It meant that I was not supposed to sit in the desk and crunch numbers all day. I was meant for something very different from crunching numbers, something more aligned with communication. And to me, that ended up being once I saw that A+, and I realized what he meant by that, ended up being one of the best compliments I ended up receiving. Because I was studying engineering, I love technology, I love science, I love architecture, as you can see with my videos. But it's not my passion first and foremost. I love the technology to feed into my passion of filmmaking and telling stories. So hearing that was one of the best compliments I ever heard. Only many years later, more than 7 years later, I ended up taking up telling stories in front of the camera. So yeah, sometimes certain college courses might take you by surprise. All right, for our final stop, Amsterdam Avenue, so you can see the food stops. When did they tear down the Colosseum? I think it was around the 1940s. I don't know for sure, but I think it was around the 1940s, 1950s. Maybe they have stage fright. Yes, they did. They did have stage fright. Was there ever a convent on Convent Avenue? Most likely, yes. I also don't know 100% for sure. But in New York City, anytime you see something called something, it's not the most elegant way of saying it, but if you see a building called the Pencil Building, or if you see a street called River Street, don't think it's metaphorical. It's literally, it used to be literally on the river. The Pencil Building used to literally make pencils. And all these gates are closed, so I really have to walk all around. Invite the professor to your feed. Says Todd. Yeah, never seen him again. But it would be cool too to see him again. Hey, Elvin. And Happy Check says, ha, got the last laugh. Thank you for the story, says Sally. My pleasure, Sally. Mr. Jones says, was there ever any tension between City College students and Columbia University students? I don't think there was any explicit tension between those two student bodies. I think the tension more lay in charging for tuition in City College. It used to be 100% free, but then they started charging later on, and it was a huge, huge ordeal. And the student body protested. Sounds of the City says, your live streams are like watching a show on PBS or Travel Channel with your personality and knowledge. Great content. Thank you. Brian says, public speaking always gives me anxiety. Yeah. I mean, it's natural. A lot of people do. It's only natural. Even the great public speakers of history did have stage fright. Some people get through it. Some people become just experts and start learning their craft. Just like me, getting more comfortable walking in the street, talking at the same time, or talking in front of a crowd. But it's only natural that everyone experiences some sort of stage fright. Even one of my favorite speakers of all time is Alan Watts, who was an English philosopher and also television personality for quite a while. And he used to drink a few cups of wine before going on stage, even though he was a master speaker, a master orator. So much so that he is one of the most well-known voices in modern history. And even him, he took several glasses of wine to give his talks. Susu says, yeah, I hate public speaking, but I do have a mouth. Opinion and a big mouth. Sounds of the City says, I'm naturally an introvert. Talking in front of people in public makes me nervous. Yeah, as I mentioned, it's a common experience by many people. They all need to learn breathing exercises. Indeed. It's something, I just learned until recently. Doing so much speaking on camera, especially now I'm speaking and walking at the same time, which not even tour guides do. Usually tour guides have stops. You have to really focus on breathing. All right, here we have Amsterdam Avenue. And all the different little restaurants, which used to not be here. And here's Cafe One. This is the place where I used to grab my coffee and really first got into hot coffee, black. The Sci-Fi Main of monovlog about similar study. Interesting. And I'll point out, let's see if the coffee shop is still open that I like recommending, so we can end there. The hardest for me is talking to my camera in front of people, says Dirty. Yeah, Dirty. I went through the same thing. Live video makes it a little bit easier because there's people commenting, at least for me personally. Some people are quite the opposite. They'd rather do a recorded video because knowing that's live kind of makes them feel extra nervous. Oh, the coffee shop is no longer open. It used to be right here. No longer open. But there is a pasta bar right over here in the pizzeria. I learned about body language, says Tara. Oh yeah, it's a great resource to become better at speaking. Be more aware of how you move your body. So Carol says Fumo is her favorite. Yeah, you know, I had the restaurant that was here before Fumo. I'm not entirely sure if it's the same owners and just changed the style. But I can't wait to try Fumo. It's always full, and it looks like it's a popular spot. So I might just go to it afterwards. All right, everyone. This was a tour of City College, walking through the heights of Hamilton, my alma mater, and also the Hogwarts in New York. You have a fun professorial vibe of talking, which makes your tours fun, says Ronald. Thank you, Ronald. I appreciate it. The Grange is nearby. Is it professorial vibe? Is it because I'm wearing a cardigan and have tortoiseshell glasses? Maybe I have completed the look. Bye, Ariel. It was a short one for me. Elvin, no problem. Elvin, thank you so much for tuning in. Let me just read the few comments I had. The best thing is to tackle is that people, imagine the people, audiences, like they're little babies. Yes, if you, not naked. Naked doesn't really help, I think. But if you imagine that they're little children, it helps quite a bit, in my opinion. Thank you once again. I'm still waiting for my Hogwarts letter. Well, just Kate. Remember, Kate, you're a wizard. Just like Hagrid said. And where is the oldest structure in New York City? It's the Wyckoff House. Yep, that's correct. But the oldest structure is in Manhattan is the Morse Jamel Mansion, which is in Uptown. Well, a few more neighborhoods up called Washington Heights. It's the tallest point in Manhattan. And I once did a course of my tutor, and they said that out of the top 10 fears, public speaking is number one. Yes, more people are scared of public speaking than even some death-defying activities. And thank you for the interesting tour. My pleasure. And is there a Japanese garden somewhere in New York City? Yes, in Staten Island. And also within the Met. And just imagine being born in a place without worries. Me too. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for your comments. See you Wednesdays and Saturdays at 1 p.m. Have a great day, everyone. From beautiful New York City. Keep being awesome and always keep on exploring. Have a great day, everyone.